Well, hey, at least this week the country's only metaphorically on fire. That's a great change of pace that you gotta appreciate. And at least coronavirus is over now, right? I haven't heard any news talk about the Rona for the entire week, further confirming it's been about the politics and not about the virus the entire time. So forget those experts you can't question. Bring in the new experts you can't question. As I record this Friday, the experts over at Decision Desk have called Pennsylvania and Georgia for Joe Biden and declared him the 46th president of the United States. This, of course, after days of painfully slow ballot counting. Funny how the exact moment the numbers tip for Joe, suddenly count every vote becomes, okay, now we're done counting votes, so accept the results or be a conspiracy theorist. As I record this video, Joe Biden is planning a Friday night primetime address to the nation in which he'll probably declare victory. Update, he didn't declare victory, at least. I guess the plan was for his media cheerleaders to do a pre-show for him. That didn't happen. So Biden gave what was a totally pointless and very brief speech, but I'm sure soon enough. But it's not over, not as a matter of want, but as a matter of fact. The Trump campaign released a statement explaining the disputes that keep the election in play. Georgia will have a recount. There are issues with poll watchers in Pennsylvania. There's pending litigation in Nevada over supposedly documented fraudulent votes. And Trump is on track to win Arizona outright, according to the campaign. Various combinations of those states would deliver Trump re-election, and there's still a scenario alive where a 269-269 tie is possible. Improbable, yes, but 2020 is the year of improbable unpleasantry, so don't count it out. Now, is any of this me saying that fraud was the decisive factor in determining the outcome of this election? Is any of this me saying that I expect the courts to overturn the results in each of these states one by one until Trump is reelected president? No. All I'm looking for as a country is an acknowledgement that the process and the results in this election are highly unusual and worthy of transparent investigation to be sure we got everything right. I have no intent to scream fraud at the moon unless I can prove to you that fraud is uniquely what explains the outcome. I can't do that, but I'm left to choose between two naive options. Either declare fraud the decisive factor without the complete evidence to do that, or believe that Democrats were ever going to allow this president to be legitimately reelected in the first place. That after 4 years of undermining him in every slimy way possible, these people would suddenly become the champions of free and fair elections of integrity, the heroes of principle over politics. So I'm asking myself, what's more unreasonable? Believing that shenanigans had something to do with this, or believing that all the states Joe needed just so happened to break his way universally and ultra conveniently under the cover of night twice? All the ballot counters went home except the ones we needed to count Joe's comeback. What's more unreasonable? Believing that shenanigans had something to do with this, or believing that an actual dead body is now the presidential candidate with the most votes in the history of the United States? What's more unreasonable? Believing that shenanigans had something to do with this, or believing that Russiagate truthers are correct in their assessment that shenanigans had everything to do with the outcome last time, but this time it's entirely clean and by the book? You don't have to be a partisan to have questions about the way this election has developed. And if it broke the other way, if Trump was pulling off the sort of improbable miracles that Biden is, you can bet the investigation into it would be swift and thorough and fierce. If you'd have questions about your opposition winning this way, you should allow your opposition to ask those questions. And when those questions are answered, we'll move on. And some of the bigger questions about the way this election developed are actually major points for optimism, deserving a moment of appreciation and recognition. Major silver linings that will ensure that a prospective Biden presidency is minimally effective. Because outside of Joe Biden, Democrats were crushed in Congress. They were crushed at the state level, and they've already been crushed in court appointments. Barring any sort of miracle, which I do have to acknowledge because there's no shortage of Democratic miracles in the last few days, but Republicans will hold the Senate. Many candidates destroyed wildly inaccurate polling projections, including, shockingly, Susan Collins in Maine, who beat polling expectations by double digits to retain her seat. Now, if it sounds uncommon for an incoming president to lose the Senate on arrival, that's because it is. If these results hold, Joe Biden will be the first new president in 30 years not to control Congress upon his entry to the White House. A Senate firewall, in combination with Amy Coney Barrett's Supreme Court confirmation and a Roberts-proof constitutionalist majority on the bench, means whatever shriveled old balls President Biden has left are neutered on arrival. There will be nothing on the fringe progressive left pass through Congress. There will be no court packing. there will be no gun control. There will be no government healthcare takeover. And if any of that is attempted through executive action, you have a court unlikely to uphold any of those constitutionally suspect power grabs. Gridlock isn't the most satisfying win, granted, but relative to what's possible, it's certainly a win that you'll take. And the results in the House were even more brutal for Democrats. After talk of a blue wave to give Nancy Pelosi a larger House majority, it wouldn't be accurate to call it a blue puddle. It was something closer to a blue evaporation. Democrats are set to lose seats in the House. They had high expectations to make gains, but at least 7 Democratic House incumbents were out as of Wednesday, losing their seats to Republican challengers. The only Republican losses were due to technicalities on redrawn districts, not true flips of the same district. Trump losing power due to high unpopularity is certainly plausible, but it's even more plausible for the much less popular Nancy Pelosi. But she's still going to trot up to the podium and claim some sort of mandate.
President-elect Biden has a strong mandate to lead, and it will have a strong Democratic House with him. We did not win every battle in the House, but we did win the war.
She doesn't even have a mandate within her own party. The post-election House Democrat conference call was reportedly heated and contentious, with one swing district Virginia congresswoman ripping the party for harming itself by pushing fringe left ideas like defunding the police and socialism. Majority Whip Jim Clyburn reportedly agreed, and those looking for that broader appeal are getting ripped back by Rashida Tlaib and the squad-minded as unsympathetic to black folks who get gunned down on the streets by police. This is a fractured party. The party has no mandate from the public, and the speaker has no mandate from the party. These frustrated moderate Democrats, or at least more moderate than the squad, are reportedly in talks to recruit somebody else to take on Nancy Pelosi for speaker. And if you think the squad sees Nancy as their queen, well, go ahead and turn your back on them, Nancy, and see how long it takes for them to stab it. And it was just as brutal for Democrats on the state level, too. Hopes to flip state legislatures dominated by Republicans did not materialize. They did get Arizona, but they lost New Hampshire, and by the end, it was the least change in state legislature control in any election since 1946. The status quo of Republican control remains. Democrats lost a governorship in Montana, too, the only change in party control of a governor's office across the country. So among the many weird things that's supposedly normal about this election, Joe Biden earned the most votes of any candidate ever, but had pathetic or non-existent down-ballot pull. The most votes ever implies enthusiasm, but if there was enthusiasm, why wouldn't voters want to give him as much power as possible? Those are important questions to analyze. It's not a common occurrence in elections. So I became interested in these claims that split ballot votes for Joe Biden and another party Senate candidate, or no Senate candidate, were uncommonly high in Michigan and Georgia. At first glance, it does appear weird, but I did the math in all the states with Senate races this year to check if the rates in Michigan and Georgia were actually outside the norm. They're not. Turns out the number of Michigan and Georgia voters voting for Biden, but another party Senate candidate or no Senate candidate, are right in line with other states. And the rates of split ballots for Biden are right in line with split ballots for Trump. My numbers are linked in the description if you'd like to check my work. So it doesn't mean that it's fraud necessarily. It just means that it's weird for Biden to surge but not carry any other Democrats with him. I know the most plausible non-fraud explanation is just that Trump is an uncommonly unpopular candidate, so there are plenty of people motivated purely to vote against him and nothing else, with no time or concern for any other ovals on the ballot. And fair enough, I understand that Trump hatred may be the single most powerful force in American politics. It's not implausible to think so, but that theory is not without its flaws. If Trump is so unpopular, why did he pull 7 million more votes and counting, over 10% more than he did in 2016? If Trump is so unpopular, why did he broaden his demographic base of support, pulling increased or even record numbers among racial minorities? If Trump is so unpopular, why did he gain more votes than his Senate Republican counterparts on the ballot? By my count, over 600,000 more votes in states with Senate races. If Trump is so unpopular, why was his favorability polling on average 5 points higher just before the 2020 election than it was just before 2016? These are questions that need some splaining. So let's keep pursuing the splaining while keeping proper perspective, too. There were major wins on Tuesday for people who still believe in America and still believe in the Constitution. Wins that deserve their due moments of recognition and celebration. There will be safeguards in place to ensure that any overt assaults upon the Constitution will be properly stopped, even if Joe Biden does become president. And even though I'm personally confused, disappointed, and very skeptical of these results, I have to remind myself that a life driven by politics is a life driven to misery, family, faith, if you're a person who believes. Whatever purpose drives your life, it is crucial to keep that purpose in focus or to build that purpose if it's lacking. Who sits in the Oval Office should not determine your happiness. We've seen for years what sort of miserable creatures those who allow that to happen become. We should learn from them and not follow their path. So fight the fight, yes, but maintain the perspective too. Even if these people do shadily control electoral outcomes, that doesn't mean that they get to control you. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.